Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Sunday for Sunday, September 26th, 2021. We've got another great show for you this week. We'll be analyzing all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more with members of the media, academia, and financial services. So sit back, relax, enjoy this episode of BRN Sunday. Well, let's kick off the show with a look at what's going on Capitol Hill and legislatively, regulatorily, and litigation-wise. And they're going to correct me in a second. We're talking to now David Levine, Kevin Walsh, both are principals, and they're chomping at the bit. Both are principals with Groom Law Group, an employee benefits law firm based in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, have at it.
Litigationally and benefitally, Jeff.
You think I would have done research in the last 7 days on how to properly pronounce, and I was really good in language and English, and apparently I missed that class on how to take that one particular word and convert it to an adverb.
You still done good to me, Jeff.
Thank you, my friend. David, what's going on?
Well, actually, I think Kevin should. Actually, let's start over. I won't be as difficult this time. Let's just start over. Sorry.
Okay. I like when you guys are difficult. I don't mind getting a hard time. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Well, let's kick things off and look at what's going on Capitol Hill. And joining me now to discuss this a lot more, Kevin Walsh, David Levine, both are principals with Groom Law Group, an employee benefits law firm based in Washington, D.C. And we also know them lovingly as the Legal Eagles. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Oh, we're great, Jeff. It's great to be here.
It's great to chat with you as always. And Kevin, I want to come to you first because there's been a lot of talk. We talked last week and the week prior about this reconciliation bill. $3.5 trillion, I think, is the number. There's a lot of negotiation going on. Anything you can tell us with regard to that process?
So, Jeff, you summed it up best right there by saying there's a lot of negotiation going on. And listeners, just as the tiniest bit of backstory on the off chance you missed last week's episode, right now, there's a massive bill that is moving through Congress. It's a reconciliation package, which means that when it gets to the Senate, the idea is that it can't be filibustered. It only requires 50 votes, but there's some procedural limitations on what can be put in that bill. Of interest to all of us, there's a number of provisions impacting the retirement space. There's a provision that will mandate that employers offer plans, and there's a number of provisions that would upend the IRA space. And last week we did a more in-depth thing. So this week the update is really that the retirement piece is only one part of this big bill, and the whole bill is under constant review. Initially, Democrats were hoping to have it through the House before September 27th. At the outset, one of the things that had been promised in order to use reconciliation tools was the Speaker had to promise moderates that they would have an opportunity to vote on a separate piece of legislation by September 27th. It looks like that deadline is going to be blown for the reconciliation package. It's going to be interesting to see on Monday if there's a vote on that other package. But where we are is essentially, we've seen a proposal that has $3.5 trillion in spending. We've seen a proposal that has $2 trillion in tax increases. And right now, we've got a lot of negotiating going on between the president, moderates, and more progressives in the House. And then, basically the House and every single Democratic senator, because with the 50 votes needed, plus Vice President Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker, the Democrats need not only to get this through the House, but they need every single Democratic senator to be on board. And right now there's a number of provisions, including the IRA provisions that we talked about, that remain fairly controversial. So, David, I've given a long update here. Unless Jeff has some questions, I'll throw it to you.
I have no questions. I was going to just make a comment that this is what they would call in the old days horse trading. That's going to be happening this weekend leading up to that date. David, let's talk about something cool and interesting, and there's a lot going on in the retirement space. Let's talk about 5500s. I love 5500s. They're great for research, and they're great for reporting.
Sure. Well, let's talk about 5500s. Let's talk about data. And in fact, I'm going to throw a little tidbit in at the end. I know, Jeff, you're generous with us on time for our segment, so I'll try to be quick. As of the DOL, back in the end of the Obama administration, was talking about updating the Form 5500 reporting to capture a lot more data. Ostensibly, it's for just transparency. But as the DOL will tell you in proposed new guidance they put out recently, that it's also about being able to better target enforcement. And yes, it's transparency, but that also means transparency not just for participants and beneficiaries, but it could mean for plaintiffs' firms and everything like that. So the DOL finally, in connection with the guidance it needed to put out under the Secure Act for reporting groups of plans, in other words, plans that have a common number of features like named fiduciary, investment lineups, administrator, like a whole bunch of pieces, could file together in a single 5500. They're sometimes called GOPS or PEP Light. So they had to put that guidance out. And in doing so, what they did is they put together basically a comprehensive overhaul of what's going to go on the Form 5500. The majority of it would apply for the 2022 plan year, but there is a little bit, especially for like multiple employer plans, that would apply for the 21 year that you're going to file next year. What do those items include? It includes for PEPs, there is a huge change here, because you actually will have a new form for PEPs that it's called Schedule PEP. Sorry, excuse me, Schedule MEP, that lists out a bunch of information about the PEP and regular multiple employer plans, including, do you have affiliates performing services for the PEP, and what prohibited transaction exemptions are you using? That's a pretty big leap, and it's also big for enforcement. The other one is the Schedule DCG, which is designed for groups of plans. Effectively, if you take a bunch of plans, try to file them together, you still have to do a schedule for each individual plan that looks like the Form 5500 SF, plus you still need audits. This gets really wonky. The last thing I'm going to mention is data. The Schedule C and the different schedules, aside from that, right now have a lot of information about fees, expenses, and costs of a plan. They would add changes that will be machine readable to break out the specific investment share classes like QSIP information, which is how you can track a lot of the funds, and much more detail on the fees and expenses. It's good for data mining, but raises questions. And that takes me to my bonus item. This past week, our favorite item is data. As you know, Kevin and I, we haven't talked about it for a while. We'll return to it. But the DOL continues to set markers on when you should and should not use data and their perspectives, even though we don't really have true formal rulemaking setting out these rules. So it's something to be aware of. And I think maybe Kevin and I will hit that next week. And that's my teaser for coming soon.
There you go. Well, gentlemen, we always appreciate you coming on. And I guess we'll check in next week on what's happening with this Reco package. And, of course, it'll be interesting to talk data. And I want to put this out there. I don't want to forget about our friends, the missing participants. I know that's something near and dear to Kevin's heart, and obviously has a lot to do with data as well. Gentlemen, we're going to leave it there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week very soon.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, listeners.
Bye, guys. Welcome back, and now we're going to talk real estate. Joining us on the line, he is the real estate reporter for Market Watch. I'm talking about Jacob Passy. Jacob, great to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning. Excuse me.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So I know we want to talk real estate, and I think there was, when we were talking offline, there was a TikTok, and this goes to the whole danger of social media, but there was a TikTok that went viral that I think you picked up on. It had a lot of myths and things, and so let's talk about that a little bit. Please do tell us more.
Yeah, so there was this TikTok that was posted by a Las Vegas area realtor, where he basically was going on. He was posing a hypothetical of, what if there's a company that goes into a neighborhood and buys 30 homes at $300,000, but then for some reason they buy the 31st home for $340,000. Why would they do that? And then he goes into how, well, they're creating a new comp, and then they get to profit when they then turn around and sell all those homes, because they can now sell those homes for $340,000 and make a profit off of the transaction. So basically what he was doing, in not so many words, and then in later posts, he kind of more specifically targeted companies like Zillow and Redfin. He was kind of breaking down for people the iBuyer business model. But when you talk to iBuyers, when you talk to real estate experts, they kind of poured some cold water on the theories he was espousing. Of course, before they got
Yep. Jacob, I'm losing you a little bit, buddy.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, okay. You were saying he was espousing.
Yeah, so he was espousing, these theories, but before, it caught on with people. The video got around 2.5 million views so far. And then, people have actually since posted it. It was on TikTok originally, and then people have tweeted out the TikTok, and it's gone viral on Twitter as well. And people are tweeting about, Zillow shouldn't be able to buy all the homes in my neighborhood, things like that. So I talked to real estate experts, and I reached out to these companies, iBuyer companies like Zillow and Redfin, to get their take on, what did he get right, what did he get wrong, and what's really going on here.
And okay, so number one, I have a huge hang up with social media and people getting information from social media. Anybody can post anything, Jacob. And we saw what happened with GameStop and AMC and subreddits, right? People getting investment advice from there. I got to think that that issue is prevalent, obviously, with real estate and other types of products or other types of services.
Yeah, it does show that you can't fully trust everything you see on social media, and this is a good example of that. So, first of all, to listeners who may have heard of, iBuying or, these companies coming in and buying and selling homes like Zillow. Zillow is one of them. Also, Open Door, OfferPad. There are a number of these so-called iBuyer companies. So the video actually got a few things wrong pretty much off the bat. First of all, typically iBuyers are buying below market value, not at market value, because they're hoping to turn a profit. Now, they usually do then sell the home for more than they bought it for, but that makes sense, because why would they buy it and then sell it if they weren't hoping to create some sort of profit off of it? So that's for starters. They typically do purchase homes from home sellers at a lower price than the average market value or than the market value of the home, to kind of give themselves a comfortable margin on the transaction. Now, that being said, this isn't necessarily bad for home sellers. Yes, they are getting a lower price for their home, but they are getting to sell their home very quickly. A transaction with an iBuyer could take as little as 5 days, even less, whereas it can take upwards of a month or two, even longer, to sell a home in a traditional route. And Zillow, when they will say that they also will warn sellers of this, that if you sell your home to us, you may be foregoing potentially higher price that you could get on the market. But they've done research that shows that is true. If you sell, and there's other people who've done research that shows that if you sell homes in the traditional method, you typically do get a higher price. On this idea of them manipulating the market, functionally at this point, at least at a national level, they do not have anywhere near the market share to be able to manipulate home prices. And perhaps on a neighborhood level, they might. But, there's no state where they're really exceeding, or city where they're exceeding, more than, around 5% of home sales. This method has grown a lot, to be sure, but it is nowhere near the level of transactions that would be necessary for them to be able to manipulate what home prices are in the market. And also keep in mind, kind of the way that this guy, if you've seen the video, the way he describes comps, you pull multiple, when a home is being appraised, multiple comps are pulled, not just one. So even if there's one outlier comp, any home appraiser is going to pull multiple to get as accurate a picture as possible of the home's price. What is going on in the market, and I think the reason this video really took off, is there's tons of anxiety. People see rents are rising right now, and home prices are rising right now. So regardless of whether you're a renter or someone looking to buy a home, you're in a tough bind, and it's only getting tougher. And mortgage rates are starting to rise, and could continue to rise through the rest of the year. So it's just getting more and more expensive, and housing affordability is a major issue in this country, but it's not because of companies like Zillow. It's because we do not have enough homes in this country, and this is a point you and I discuss a lot, but it bears repeating that, there is a major shortage of housing in this country. A recent Realtor.com report estimated that we're short about 5 million homes, I believe is what they said.
Wow.
So, when you see a number like that, that is huge. And, the market is very competitive right now. And that competitive market, because there's a lot of demand among home buyers, is driving prices up. There are certainly a lot of people paying all cash, including corporations like Zillow, and private equity investors are also investing in real estate a lot right now. And so cash buyers in some cases and in some parts of the country probably are driving home prices up higher, but it's not just companies like Zillow. While it is easy to make them out to be a boogeyman, they are not, in a position yet where they can really manipulate the market in the way that people think they are.
And so, Jacob, I want to unpack. So thanks for clarifying that. And I just want to unpack, was this real estate? I have not seen the TikTok. I don't use TikTok, and nor do I use Twitter, as you know. I mean, I'm usually busy working, so I don't have a lot of time to do that. You're obviously in the journalism business, and so therefore you are checking and seeing what people are saying. But this individual, were they working for a reputable, like a big name brand real estate company? Was it a little bit of sour grapes? And are there standards that real estate agents are held to in terms of how they communicate on social media? Just like in the financial services world, I mean, we have a rigorous compliance infrastructure in place to prevent bad information being distributed.
Yeah, no, you make some you asked a great question. So first of all, my understanding from researching him, he works for a smaller brokerage, real estate brokerage in the Las Vegas area, or southern Nevada, and he, it's not like a major name, big name like Keller Williams or something like that. Funnily enough, he does actually have a Zillow profile. I'm not 100% sure if that, because agents can have listings on Zillow for their services. I'm not 100% sure. That might have been tied to a previous brokerage he used to work at. It doesn't have the same name as the current one he's working at, so I don't know if that's an active listing or not. He also has a listing on Realtor.com. But certainly there is, to some extent, some animosity between, there's always been animosity from realtors against, these big players, because, companies like Zillow and Redfin, their whole kind of MO is that they are trying to upend the real estate model, and they're all going about it different ways. Redfin's very explicit on how they're trying to, lower the commissions, the average commissions in the industry, and they are cheaper for buyers and sellers to work with Redfin than a traditional broker. And what you're also seeing from a lot of these companies, and this was an interesting conversation I had for this story with a real estate professor at Columbia, is, a lot of companies, Zillow, Redfin, Rocket Mortgage is another example. They are trying to create kind of an all-in-one approach to real estate. So, one company will list the home, will give you the mortgage, will do the title and escrow, will do every part of the process. And, he referred to it as they're all trying to become an Amazon of real estate. And to the extent that, perhaps the iBuyer model is the way forward towards that, what if this does catch on? This real estate professor was saying, theoretically, and only theoretically, there is a world in which these companies, if they are successful in this business, maybe they could achieve enough market share that they actually do start to influence the market itself and, influence home prices and stuff like that. So, I don't want to say there's nothing, everything is possible. But with the professor I spoke with, what he warned is, if that were to happen, or even come close to happening, you can almost be certain that these companies would attract a significant amount of regulatory scrutiny because of the fact that, there's a lot of sensitivity around the real estate market, partially because of, the 2008 financial crisis, largely being caused by a subprime mortgage crisis and people being foreclosed against. But there's numerous regulatory bodies at the federal level, and every state kind of has their own regulatory agency that scrutinizes mortgage lending and real estate transactions. And you can pretty much be certain, especially when you look at how much flack companies like Apple and Amazon get. Well, Zillow or Redfin or any of these kind of tech-based algorithmic players get to that level, you can almost be certain they're going to attract some attention, and it's not going to be necessarily positive attention. So for a realtor, a real estate broker or agent who's working at a small level, isn't an employee of one of these companies, there is a degree of animosity there that is almost certainly informing his perspective. I will say, in his defense, as far as I can tell, he does abide by, he lists his, state ID number in his videos, and, doesn't, lie about the fact that he is a realtor. But yeah, no, it is, those are great questions to ask. And there is a lot of, backroom dynamics going on here that's probably influencing what he's talking about.
Yeah, always important to consider the perspective and what that other person has in mind in terms of what they're going for, right? If they're selling a book, if they are promoting themselves, if they're invested in something, maybe they're trying to flip a home or they own a home, right? You've always got to sense it out when you're reading something or watching a video. Jacob, we're going to have to leave it there. Really interesting story, but it just shows you how powerful social media is and how you have to be a good consumer, not only of goods, but a good consumer of information. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon, my friend.
Talk soon. Take care.
Bye-bye. Welcome back, and we've got a very new contributor, I should say, this week, and I'm very pleased to welcome Carl Sullivan of Flipboard. He's a managing editor of Flipboard here in the U.S. Flipboard is a global news organization, but let's start off by welcoming Carl. Carl, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me and for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And I'm a big consumer user of Flipboard. Let's start there. What is Flipboard? For those audience members who do not use Flipboard, and how dare you, by the way, what is the Flipboard platform and how do we get access to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Flipboard has been around for about 10 years. It was one of the first apps on the iPad, but basically it's a free content platform where you can get all the news and information that you care about. I mean, the great thing about Flipboard is that you can really customize what you want. So if you're only interested in investing or retirement, you can follow those topics. Or if you're interested in golf or recipes or kayaking, really whatever your interest is, Flipboard is set up so that once you choose those topics, it's going to get you the latest and greatest content on those issues.
And this is a very robust platform. I mean, for those that have not used it, Carl, it's a global platform. I think you have 100 million, correct me if I'm wrong, 100 million users each month that curate their own content. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's right. We have over 100 million users worldwide. We're in, the U.S. is obviously we're based in the U.S. It's our most important market, but yeah, we've got users in almost every country you can think about, and we have publishers. All the major publishers in all those countries are on the platform. So in the U.S., you'll see content from the New York Times to Fox News to CNN to ESPN. So it's a great place to get content from a variety of sources in one place. And again, it's all free. There's no charge for the service.
And what I like about it, in addition to all those things you mentioned, it's a place that I can go to get information, and I can curate it myself, but it's visual. And the world has really moved, Carl, to a visual world. I mean, we're watching videos. You guys have videos. We're reading articles. You have articles. But a lot of it is keyed off of the images, the thumbnails that are in the pieces that that the authors include.
Yeah, and I think for me, even though I work there, it's a fun experience. You flip through the content, so it's really about if you're looking for something immediate or kind of the news of the day, you can find that. But if you've got more time, you want to just sit back and kind of discover things that you maybe didn't know about. there's this flipping experience where you can just kind of flip through. And the app is basically learning your preferences and what you're interested in over time. And then you also follow topics. So it's just a great way of consuming content, in a nice, clean environment.
Have you ever had anyone, you've heard of tennis elbow. Have you ever heard of someone have like a flipper's thumb?
If anybody would have that, I think it would be me, because I'm obviously in the app all the time because it's my job. But yeah, so far my thumbs are still okay. No sprains or injuries.
Okay, and last question, Carl. I know one area that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about so many things when having you on the show, because there's a lot of things that you cover. You named a few of them, from recipes to travel to vaccines to you name it, you cover it. But you're also launching a personal finance newsletter for those users, those consumers of important financial information.
Yeah, that's right. That's actually starting in just a few weeks. So in mid-October, we're rolling out a new personal finance email newsletter. A colleague of mine has been working on that. And it's great. If you're already a Flipboard user, you can get it by just making sure that you follow the personal finance topic, or you can visit your profile settings on flipboard.com. And actually, if you're not a Flipboard user, you're also more than welcome to sign up. We'd love to have people see our email newsletters. And you can do that by visiting flipboard.com/newsletters.
Yeah. All right, Carl, let's talk about some of these hot stories. 2 weeks ago, I know, when I talked to you, 9/11 was a big, big theme for you all, 20th anniversary. This week, I know you wanted to talk about travel during the pandemic. What's trending on your platform about travel?
Yeah, it's really a hot topic right now. I mean, I think it has been throughout the summer, but we've seen on Flipboard, we've seen users really consuming a lot of content in the last week or two about the latest on travel and what's happening. I mean, obviously the whole Delta variant situation is very volatile. Things are changing every day, and I think people have a lot of questions, so they're really hungry for information. People want to know, is it safe for me to make travel plans now? How can I protect myself if I need to cancel later? So we're just seeing a lot of interest in that topic on Flipboard.
And in terms of protecting yourself, I would think travel insurance. I was talking to someone, I think it was on Friday, from AAA, talking about the uptick. You may want to get travel insurance. That can protect you, but you want to make sure you get the right travel insurance.
Yeah, that's right. One thing to consider is that many of the airlines and the big hotel chains have actually loosened their cancellation policies, which is great, but you still need to read that fine print, because you still could, if you have a really last minute cancellation that you need to cancel because you're sick or you're worried about an outbreak of uptick of virus cases wherever you're going, you still need to read that policy. And I think a lot more people are taking out travel insurance policies than they were before the pandemic started.
Yeah, really smart. And I've been reading about requirements now if you're going to travel abroad. I'm sure the airlines still have not fully recovered, Carl, from pre-pandemic. I mean, the business travel, I think, is still down. But you really need to check where you're going if you do choose to travel by plane, train, automobile. Very famous John Candy movie, of course. You really got to know the rules of the road or the track or the air.
Yeah, it's true. And one of our partners on Flipboard is the Points Guy. I'm not sure if your listeners are familiar with this site, but it's a great travel site. And they've recently done a lot of articles about is it, when you're making travel plans, is it worth, for example, making plans to travel overseas versus domestic travel, which seems a little bit safer and less stressful. So that's certainly something to consider. So, for example, one of their correspondents was doing a trip to the Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean, and you have to get permission from the government before you can actually go, kind of a special visa. And this correspondent was saying that they only got the clearance like 1 hour before their flight. So obviously very stressful. And I think that's causing a lot of people to say, you know what, I'm going to just hold off on the overseas travel for now and just travel domestically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably thinking and rethinking and rethinking and rethinking the travel, whether they want to commit commit dollars today to make sure they can get them back. Carl, let's shift gears. You brought up, I brought up, I guess, vaccine. We were talking about COVID. Let's talk about vaccine boosters. There's a lot of talk, and we're not going to wade into the politics. We'll leave that for other contributors on the Flipboard platform, of course. But there is interest of certain groups who are eligible. What are you hearing? What are you reading on the platform about who may be interested in and who's eligible?
Yeah, and we have a lot of COVID-19 content on Flipboard, and it's obviously a very hot topic and has been for a while. What's really, I was just checking this morning, what's really hot this morning is the booster shots because, the CDC just yesterday came out with some new rules on particularly the Pfizer shot. So boosters are now approved, but only for certain individuals. So, for example, anyone over the age of 65, actually starting today, is eligible for that third booster shot as long as it's 6 months after their second dose. So obviously big news here that a lot of people are looking at and, looking to get more information about when will I be eligible and how do I get the booster.
And also, what about insurance? Does insurance cover the booster? Does it cover the vaccine? I was just actually, before you and I were chatting, I was watching the president. I think he was making a public address on this topic and so many other topics. But do you have to pay or do you have to be eligible for insurance in order to get this booster or get the vaccine?
Yeah, as far as we know, the same guidelines that applied to the first vaccine, your first and second shots would apply here, which basically means no, it should be free. You should not have to pay anything. Now, you may be asked for your insurance card when you go to get your shot, and that just means that the pharmacy or the location may bill your insurance, but even if your insurance for some reason declines to pay, the federal government is pretty much guaranteed that these are going to be free, these booster shots. So there should be no money out of pocket for you, no matter what your insurance status
right.
is.
And people want to be real good consumers. Make sure you're reading up on the platform. Make sure you understand all the rules of the game so you are not asked to pay money that you shouldn't have. I guess the last thing I'll mention here, Carl, I was reading on the platform about I think Apple is, Apple's got its wallet, and in its Apple Wallet on the iPhone you can store your credit cards, you can store your Amtrak card. Looks like you're going to be able to store your vaccine card, and I know that's not necessarily a vaccine or booster issue, but it's a technology topic, and have you been reading about that?
Yeah, and actually it's funny. I happen to live in New York State where we have what's called the Excelsior Pass, which is the New York State pass that shows that you've been fully vaccinated. And I actually have it. I have an Apple phone, and I have it in my wallet. And, here in New York City, you're required to show that vaccine if you want to go into a restaurant or if you want to go inside to a gym. That's the local regulation here. So it's very convenient to just open my phone, open that wallet, and there it is. They scan it, and they match it with my driver's license, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's amazing, the technology and how quickly it can adapt. Well, Carl, I want to, again, welcome you to the program. I thank you so much for joining us. Big fan of Flipboard. And look, we look forward to having you back on again very soon to tell us what is hot and what's kind of not on the Flipboard platform. Thanks so much.
Great to be here, and happy to come back anytime.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, my friend.
Okay, thanks. And just quickly, do you prefer Jeff or Jeffrey? Because I was almost said your name, but I wasn't sure which.
Oh, it doesn't matter. You can call me Jeff or Jeffrey. It really doesn't matter.
Okay, I just didn't know if for your listeners you use one name or the other.
It doesn't. I say Jeff, and when my wife or my mother is mad at me, they call me Jeffrey. So you
okay.
use whatever you would like at your discretion.
Let's hope I don't have to use Jeffrey.
Okay. Well, hey, look, I've been told lots of things by lots of people, so it's not like I probably haven't heard it before. Carl, you did a great job, and I will share this with you on Sunday. This is when the show comes out, and just interested in your feedback, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing a little insight.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for the opportunity. We really appreciate it, and we love having you on the Flipboard platform. So happy to help out.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good weekend.
Okay. Yeah, you too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Welcome back, and let's talk a little healthcare. Joining us on the line, she is the healthcare editor for Business Insider. She's also the editor of Dispensed, a weekly curation of all the important news in healthcare. We're talking about Lydia Ramsey-Flanzer. Lydia, always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program again this morning.
Yeah, anytime.
Oh, it's great to talk to you. And we were just chatting. I mean, it is officially fall. We have hit the what is it? The autumnal equinox, I think is what they call it. So it's getting a little bit cooler. But let me ask you, what has been top of mind this week for the folks at BI when it comes to healthcare?
Yeah, this may be a very common refrain by this point, but definitely a big thing we kept our eye on was the conversation around vaccines, in particular around boosters. So this week, the FDA officially authorized Pfizer's COVID vaccine. So people who've gotten 2 doses of Pfizer's vaccine can get a 3rd dose, but it's only for pretty limited groups. Pfizer came in asking for everyone 18 and up, and the FDA cleared it for people who are 65 and older, as well as some other kind of folks on the front lines and in kind of more congregated living areas like prisons or nursing homes. And it's interesting, there's some drama around it too, because the CDC has their own expert panel, and they came out with recommendations that were slightly different from the FDA's as well. So it is all this to say the booster conversation has no shortage of nuance or controversy.
Yeah, I guess you would think that there would be a unified. I guess maybe not. Maybe I'm just being naive, but you would think that there would just be some type of unified response. Everyone's looking at this, and you would think that before they made it public, they would agree on what the communication was. That's just me. I mean, that's what I would do
Right.
if I was running things, but clearly I'm not. So clearly, and we probably don't
Have
want.
you talked to the Biden administration quick?
No, you don't want that. You don't want that. But how do I know if I'm eligible, and how do I get this booster if I'm a person that is in this criteria?
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I think first and foremost, and this is something that I think can get a little confusing, you have to have had 2 shots of Pfizer's vaccine to get a 3rd. So for instance, if you got 2 doses of Moderna or if you got 1 dose of J&J, this isn't going to impact you, period, full stop. And then to think about the other pieces, which is like if you're 65 and older, that's pretty clear cut. But if you're at higher risk, I think it's pretty straightforward to go in and get it. I mean, definitely talk to a doctor, but I've not heard any experiences in which it's been difficult to say, hey, I'm eligible for a booster, let me go get it. So that part shouldn't be too bad. But the thing to keep in mind is like thinking about your risk as a human. Like, so if you're working on the front lines in a hospital, and you are, I think where the CDC kind of came down was they recommended it. They didn't unanimously recommend, we didn't recommend at all, healthcare workers or other frontline workers get the vaccine, the booster. And I think that's an interesting twist. So it's something that people have to really consider. What are your risk levels? What are some of the other conditions that might put you at more risk of severe COVID-19? And also, how old are you is a big part of that risk factor. So someone who's 22 and working in a hospital might not have the same kind of urgency to go get a booster as someone who might be, say, 55.
Yeah, and what about the other vaccine manufacturers? Is there a booster coming for those? And can you mix and match, or do you still have to? If you get Pfizer, you got to stay with Pfizer.
There are some trials underway right now. We don't have good data on mixing and matching. I'll say that up front. I know it's really frustrating to hear because, especially for people who got the J&J shot and seeing kind of its efficacy over time, it's been kind of like, okay, what do I do? And wanting a solution. But hold your horses. On the Moderna front, I know that they're also approaching the FDA for booster clearance, but that hasn't happened yet. People thought it would come in tandem with Pfizer's, but it didn't. It's all a matter of getting this data, right? We still are trying to figure out, do we need boosters at all? The answer seems to be, for some people, yeah, it doesn't hurt to get a booster. There's been questions around, do we need variant-specific boosters, ones that'll go after the Delta variant, which is obviously prevalent at the moment. There's tests underway for that. It's really complicated because we haven't really ever had this experience before.
No.
I'm thinking about it. Right?
No, yeah, I mean, we
So
have, no, I
there's
think
no
you're,
straightforward path in the same way.
yeah, I mean, I think people have to understand that this is a work in progress, that it's imperfect. I think you're absolutely right. What about, changing gears a little bit, what about children? Any approval, for kids, or is that still a ways off?
No, it's coming soon. I forget the exact timeline, but I believe we're supposed to get decisions on kids by the end of 2021. So only a few more months left.
Yeah.
This week, Pfizer on Monday released.
Oh, Lydia?
Safe and seems to be effective in kids.
Yep. Sorry, I lost
sorry,
you.
do
No, you're fine. I lost you for a second. You cut out. Just start that sentence again.
Yeah, early on Monday, Pfizer came out with a press release that said that found that kids 5 to 11, the vaccine is safe in those kids, and it seems to be effective. So that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, it sounds like things are, again, it's a work in progress. Let me ask you a question about mask mandates. Obviously in different parts of the country. I live in North Carolina. We have has been a surge of cases. I think that may have been going down, but we have a requirement to wear masks both indoors and in places with other people. Are there any requirements? I notice all different types of masks, and I know the one mask that really is effective is the N95 mask, and that I think at the beginning of the outset of the pandemic was really hard to get, right? I mean, they had to make sure that the PPE was really for the frontline doctors and nurses and people on the dealing with that. But are there going to be any requirements for the type of mask that you wear rather than one of those cloth ones that probably don't do as well as the others?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything leaning in that direction. I think for the most part, mask mandates as a whole have been cooled off, for better or for worse. But yeah, I haven't seen anything. I think it comes down to personal comfort too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you're feeling the most comfortable in an N95, you should definitely wear it. But yeah, I don't have too much on masks. I'm so sorry.
No need to apologize. It was just a question that came out of me thin air. And I look out of my studio window, Lydia, and I can see Bank of America Stadium where the Carolina Panthers play, and I can actually look into the seating bowl on Sunday and see thousands upon thousands of fans cheering on the Panthers. I'm not a fan, but I'm a Ravens fan. But I guess, when you look at these, you look at these major events, it has nothing to do with the question, but you look at these major events, and I wonder if there's any concern. I see so many fans here in Charlotte. I see them on TV not wearing masks or sitting side by side with each other. And these could be in areas where they're not testing for the vaccine, or they're not requiring the vaccine, or they're not even asking for you to bring a COVID test. I mean, I just wonder if that's going to get any additional scrutiny, because I would look at that, or concerts, by the way, I would look at that and say, well, that kind of looks like a super spreader event to me. It just seems like that would, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a thing that we'll have to monitor. As I think about it a lot with concerts. Concerts have come back in full force, and some, require vaccines and stuff. But a lot of them are becoming indoors as the weather gets cooler. I'm going to be curious to see what happens. I think we're still trying to figure out how much of an impact these kinds of events have. For instance, with football games, the season, if I understand it correctly, is still kind of early. So if I think we start to see super spreader events coming out of those games, perhaps we could see more mask mandates. But I think it's all one of those big experiments, for better or for worse. We're trying to see what life looks like with this disease that's going to be part of our lives for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I love an indoor concert. I love going to restaurants. We like doing all those things. I just, maybe a little hesitant at this point until I know a little bit more data. But that's just me. What can I say? Lydia Ramsey, it is always a pleasure chatting with you. Always great to get your opinion and hear what's going on the inside at Business Insider. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great, wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thanks so much. You too.
Thanks, Lyd. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Sunday. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow for BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.